You wake up inside a silk bag, in total darkness, pressed against roughly 200 of your brothers and sisters. You didn't ask for this. Nobody did. And here's the thing, nobody tells you about being born a black widow. Some of your siblings are already thinking about eating you. You are a spiderling. You're smaller than a grain of rice. Barely a speck with legs. Your mother spun this egg sac out of silk weeks ago and has been guarding it ever since, standing watch outside like a bouncer for a nightclub made of protein fiber. Inside, life has already turned into a competition, and you didn't get a say in the rules. The strong hatch first. The strong grow faster, and when food runs low inside that sealed little world, before you've even seen daylight, the faster growing spiderlings start eating the slower ones. Scientists call it filial cannibalism, which is a polite scientific term for your sibling ate your other sibling before breakfast. Nobody warns you about that in the baby animal montage. You survive. Congratulations. Now you have to get out. The ones who make it crawl free of the sack and do something that sounds made up but isn't. They climb to the highest point they can find, point their abdomen at the sky, and release a thread of silk into the open air. The breeze catches it. And just like that, you're airborne, a spider, ballooning through the sky like a tiny skydiver who never asked for the job, drifting wherever the wind decides to drop you. No parachute training, no say in the landing site. You could end up in a garden. You could end up in someone's garage. You could end up in a swimming pool, which, for the record, is not a great landing zone when you're an inch long and can't swim. Most of you won't make it to adulthood. Researchers estimate that only a small fraction of spiderlings from any single egg sac survive long enough to reproduce. The rest become bird food, get eaten by other bugs, dry out, starve, or simply land somewhere with nothing to eat. But you're one of the lucky ones. You land somewhere dark, somewhere quiet, somewhere nobody's going to bother you for a while. And that's when your life as a black widow actually begins. You live in warm places, across much of North America, and in cousin species scattered around the world, from Australia to South Africa to South America, each with their own local flavor of the same reputation. You like the spots humans forget about. Wood piles, sheds, the underside of rocks, the dusty corner of a garage nobody's cleaned since some year they can't quite remember. You are not an outdoorsy spider looking for a nice view or a sunny web location. You want dark, undisturbed, structurally messy, and left alone. That's the whole real estate wish list, and honestly, it's not a bad one. Here's the first weird thing about you. You're basically blind. Your eyesight is bad enough that seeing the world isn't really how you experience it at all. Instead, you build a web, not the pretty, symmetrical kind you're picturing, the kind that shows up on Halloween decorations every October. Yours is a mess. A tangled, chaotic scaffold of silk strung out in 3 dimensions that looks like you gave up halfway through construction. But it's not lazy, it's engineered. That chaos is a trap purpose-built to snag crawling insects and yank them clean off their feet the moment they touch a sticky ground line. And this is where your actual superpower kicks in. Every strand of silk in your web is tuned like a guitar string, vibrating at its own frequency depending on tension and length. You don't see what's caught in your web, you feel it. A struggling beetle vibrates differently than a stray gust of wind. A moth thrashing against a thread feels completely different than a raindrop landing on it. Imagine if your entire nervous system was rewired into your fingertips, and those fingertips were stretched out across a structure the size of a house, and you could tell, without looking, exactly what had just touched down and how hard it was fighting for its life. That's your everyday reality. You don't watch your web. You listen to it through your legs all day, every day, for your entire adult life. And your silk itself is no joke. Spider silk in general is famous for being incredibly strong relative to its weight. Pound for pound, tougher than steel, and black widow silk specifically is considered among the toughest and most elastic silk produced by any spider on Earth. Engineers have actually studied it, trying to figure out how to replicate something that strong, that light, spun out of a creature that weighs less than a paperclip. You're not just building a trap, you're building one out of some of the strongest material known to science, spun out of your own body, for free, constantly, without a single day off. So when something finally blunders into your web, a cricket, a fly, a beetle, maybe another spider that made a genuinely bad life decision, you feel it before you ever see it. You rush down the silk toward the vibration, fast, no hesitation. You wrap your prey while it's still struggling, pinning it in place with more silk, cooning it like a tiny panicked mummy. Then you bite. Your venom does 2 jobs at once, which is efficient even by insect standards. It starts shutting down the nervous system of whatever you just caught, so the struggling stops. And alongside it, you inject digestive enzymes that begin liquefying your prey's insides, dissolving it from within, turning solid tissue into something closer to soup. You don't chew your food, you drink it. A beetle several times your own size can be reduced, within a few hours, to an empty husk hanging in your web like a grim little trophy, all its substance gone, its shell left swinging in the breeze. This is called external digestion, and it means your stomach starts working before your food is even inside your body. Efficient. Horrifying. Also, somehow, still just Tuesday for you. You'd think, with a hunting method like that, nothing would dare come after you. You'd be wrong. Being terrifying to crickets does not make you untouchable. Mud-dauber wasps are one of your biggest threats, and the way they hunt you is arguably worse than anything you do to your own prey. A wasp finds you, stings you, but not to kill you, to paralyze you. You're fully conscious the entire time. You just can't move a single leg. And then the wasp drags your paralyzed body back to its nest, seals you inside a small chamber made of mud, and leaves you there as fresh, living food for its larvae to slowly eat, over days, while you're unable to do anything but exist. Birds pick you off when they find you out in the open. Larger spiders eat you if given the chance. Your venom, so effective against insects and even dangerous to humans, barely slows some of your specialized predators down at all. You build the scariest trap in the neighborhood, and somewhere out there, something built a scarier one just for you. Specifically, by name. But if you're female and you survive the wasps and the birds and the bad weather, you eventually reach the moment your entire biology has been quietly building toward. Mating! And this is where things get complicated and where your species earned its entire cultural reputation. If you're male, you are small. Genuinely small, often less than half the size, sometimes closer to a third the size, of the female you're approaching. And you cannot simply walk into her web and introduce yourself, because to her anything moving on her web registers as one of 2 things: dinner or a threat. So you pluck the silk in a very specific, deliberate rhythm, a kind of vibrational password signaling over and over. I'm not food, I'm a suitor, please read the room. Get the rhythm wrong, misjudge her mood, or approach at the wrong time, and she may not be able to tell the difference until it's too late for you. Here's the part everyone's heard about. Sexual cannibalism. The female eating the male, sometimes during mating, sometimes right after he's finished his part. And it's true, it happens, it's documented, it's real. But it's not universal, and it's not a guaranteed death sentence every single time, despite what your species' entire reputation suggests. Researchers believe it happens more often under certain conditions, particularly when the female is hungry or food has been scarce. And studies suggest that in the wild, plenty of males actually survive their encounters and go on to mate again with other females elsewhere. So the odds aren't as fixed, or as cinematic, as the legend makes them sound. But here's the truly strange part, the one that turns this from tragedy into something closer to strategy. In some widow species, researchers have studied this closely in redback widows, a close relative of yours found in Australia. Males that get eaten during mating may not simply be victims of bad timing. Some evidence suggests a male can continue transferring sperm even while actively being consumed, and that being eaten might actually help him fertilize more eggs. Or might discourage the female from mating with any other male afterward, essentially locking in his own genetic legacy with his own body. In other words, in some cases, getting eaten alive might not be a tragic accident. It might be the single most effective reproductive decision available to him. Imagine finding out that your death wasn't a mistake at all. It was your best move, calculated by millions of years of evolution, and you just happened to be the one living it out. Now here's the fact that usually gets saved for last. Because once people hear it, they genuinely can't unhear it. Your venom is called latrotoxin, and it doesn't work like most venoms out there. It doesn't just cause localized pain at the bite site. It floods the nervous system, forcing a massive uncontrolled release of neurotransmitters throughout the entire body, all at once. In a human being who's bitten, this can cause intense muscle rigidity, painful cramping, heavy sweating, and pain so severe and so widespread that it has, in real documented cases, been mistaken for appendicitis or even a heart attack. Doctors have prepped patients for emergency surgery, or come close to it, before realizing the actual culprit was a spider bite from hours earlier in a garage that the patient barely even noticed at the time. And yet, despite the reputation, despite the name, despite decades of horror movie casting and true crime-style documentaries, Black Widow bites are rarely fatal to healthy adults in places with access to modern medical care. Antivenom exists and works. Severe reactions are treatable. Documented deaths from Black Widow bites are genuinely uncommon today, especially compared to how the species gets talked about online. You have a fearsome reputation you can barely live up to in practice. Statistically, in day-to-day human life, people face bigger everyday risks than you do. Falls, car accidents, and plenty of mundane hazards most people never think twice about walking past. You are, weirdly, more famous than you are actually dangerous, which might be the most insulting thing that's ever happened to you. You spend your entire life building venom capable of shutting down a nervous system, perfecting it, refining it, and it turns out humanity's biggest everyday killers are things like staircases and vending machines. So, how does this story end for you? If you're male, probably not long after mating, sometimes literally in the act, sometimes shortly after, whether or not cannibalism was involved. Your lifespan was always going to be short. Many males don't live much past reaching maturity and successfully finding a mate at all. A few months of life if things go well. Less if they don't. If you're female, you might get more time, commonly somewhere in the range of 1 to a few years, though it varies quite a bit with local conditions, climate, and how much food you manage to catch along the way. But more time doesn't mean safety, and it definitely doesn't mean comfort. You might starve during a bad season when prey is scarce and your web keeps coming up empty. You might freeze when the temperature drops somewhere you didn't expect, in a woodpile that seemed fine in October and became a death trap by January. You might get caught by a bird, or a bigger spider, or a mud dauber wasp with a very specific, unpleasant plan for your remaining days. Pesticides get plenty of you too, since humans really don't love finding you in the garage and tend to respond accordingly. There's no dramatic final battle waiting for you at the end of all this. No last stand, no cinematic showdown. Mostly, you just stop showing up one day in the same dark corner where you spent your whole life listening to the world through silk threads, waiting for the vibration that, eventually, just never comes again. You spent your whole existence building the perfect trap, tuning it, maintaining it, trusting it completely. In the end, something bigger built one for you, and you never even felt it coming until it was already too late to matter. You started this life eating your way past your own siblings just to get out of the sack in the first place. You might end it wrapped up, paralyzed, or eaten by someone you trusted enough to let onto your own web. In between, in the dark, mostly alone, almost completely misunderstood by every creature that ever crossed your path. You built something genuinely brilliant that almost nobody ever bothered to see. If you'd rather live this life than your own today, hit subscribe. Next week, you're waking up as something worse.